Aggressive or gentle cut, what should you go for? Because it's a massive thing that gets thrown around, and an aggressive cut is a very useful tool, as is doing a gentle or a more mild deficit. So I just want to run through how to do this, and by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what type of deficit you should be running so that you look sick for summer. If I put you onto a desert island with no food, no water, basically you was eating fuck all, you would lose a lot of fat. You would probably, your body fat percentage would go down by a good few percentage because you couldn't eat anything, okay? Very rapid fat loss. Whereas, on the other hand, if I put you into a gym environment, put you on the perfect split, you did everything right, your food was on point for exact same time period as that desert, you would maybe gain like 30 grams of muscle. I don't even know. Like, you would gain a very, very minute, tiny amount of muscle, even if you've done everything perfect. The reason for that is fat. The saying is fat is easy to gain and easy to lose, and muscle is hard to gain and hard to lose. They're two different types of tissue. Okay. Now, why I say that is because it basically means you can be aggressive with a deficit, but you can't be aggressive with muscle building. It's just something that's going to take a long time, and you're going to have to be in that phase for a while. Now, what actually is aggressive cut versus gentle cut? Because they're both deficits. They're still going to do the same thing. It's just one's going to do it quicker than the other. It doesn't necessarily mean it's better, as we'll go through in this video. So an aggressive cut, you're looking at 500 plus calorie deficit. So say your maintenance is 3,000 calories, you're looking at doing 2,500 calories. Now, that's the deficit through the food alone. It's 500 plus. So throughout the deficit, the actual amount you're going down by might increase. But on top of that, you're also putting in added CV work, cardiovascular work. So that could look like, for example, starting off at 60 minutes per week, split into 2 or 3 sessions. But that could definitely ramp up if you are in an aggressive cut. And that also would look like increasing your step count. So you're doing all 3 at the same time. So you're doing the big deficit through the food. You're adding in extra cardio, because you should have been doing cardio anyway, whatever phase you're in, particularly a bulk, but you could actually be adding more in, as well as steps. Steps should stay in year round, but you're adding in extra. Whereas a gentle cut would look something like a 200 to 300 calorie deficit. Maybe you're starting at, say, for example, 40-minute cardio a week, and you're just adding 1,000 steps onto what you're already doing. Here are some of the pros of doing an aggressive cut. Now, the first one is that bigger scale movements is going to give you more motivation early on. So, for example, I'm doing a fairly aggressive cut right now, and I have lost 4 kilos in 2 weeks. And it's nice waking up in the morning and seeing these big scale movements. It makes you feel like you're doing something right. It makes all the work you're doing throughout the day feel like it's paying off, because you're seeing that scale drop so rapidly. Another pro is that you're still going to be fresh from that previous stage. So you might not even feel the pinch of being in a deficit for a good few weeks. Now, you wouldn't ideally go straight from a bulk straight into an aggressive cut, because your weight's going to fluctuate too much. It's not really too great for you. What you would actually want to do is transition from the bulk, a maintenance period. So we call it like a marination period, just to let that weight hold and actually find out what weight you truly are, for say 4 to 6 weeks after the bulk, just at maintenance. And then you could go into aggressive cut. That's a way better set point. But either way, you're still going to have been on high food. You still should feel quite fresh. So you might not even feel that hungry, that fatigued until a lot later on in the cut. So then first few weeks, you might be sound for. And another pro is you've got this in and out mentality. You've got that deadline. You're going to say, in 8 weeks, I want to lose 10 kilo, for example. You've got that short time period, and you can just go fucking hard during that period. But of course, there is cons to this approach. It's not all sunshines and rainbows, unfortunately. Now, one of the main factors that people are going to say about with an aggressive cut is muscle loss. Now, going back to that desert island example, that's a perfect scenario for muscle loss to occur, because there's no protein, there's no training, you're in a severe calorie deficit. Muscle loss 100% is going to occur there. But in an aggressive cut, so long as you have an all right amount of muscle to start with, as well as obviously you're pairing that with your training, you're still training very hard throughout this cut. Don't just take time off for whatever reason. Muscle loss is actually going to be quite minimal compared to what you think. You probably will maybe lose a little bit, but it will be a very unnoticeable amount. Remember what I said earlier, muscle's hard to gain, but it's also hard to lose. But if you are someone that training goes to shit when you diet, your calories are really, really low, then 100% muscle loss is something you've got to worry about here. The next one is fatigue builds up very quickly. Now, because you are in a big deficit with the calories, your cardio is going up, your steps are going up. That's a lot of demand to put on the body. And remember as well, your sleep could get impacted by this big deficit. So what can end up happening is that fatigue builds up quite quick. You get really fatigued and you just get fucking cooked. You also have less wiggle room for later on. So if you've gone big deficit, big cardio, big steps, when your weight inevitably stalls, then what do you do? Because you might have maxed out steps. You might be doing the most amount of steps you could do in a day. You might be on 3 lots of 30-minute cardio a week, and you might have already got your calories down to 2000. Where are you going to move the needle to see that scale driving down? You haven't got as many options as if you had a gentle cut. And there is just way more chance of falling off because it's a lot harder than any phase you've been in before. Mentally and physically, it's going to be a lot more demanding. And that means after 4 or 5 weeks of doing this, you might just sack it off and think, I'm not doing this anymore. Now, who is the ideal person for an aggressive cut? Do you suit the criteria? Now, the first one is going to be someone that is heavily muscled. So one of either of these guys, especially this guy, okay, he's going to be sound. If you have a lot more muscle, like we were saying earlier, you can get way more aggressive with it. And even if you do lose a little bit of muscle, because you are so muscular anyway, it's not going to even be noticeable. And also, one thing I want to touch on about the whole muscle loss thing is people think that they might be losing muscle mass when they look at themselves, especially in them first few weeks of a cut when you're a bit flatter. All that is that you have dropped a lot of water weight and a lot of glycogen from your muscle. So it just appears smaller, but there's probably actually not much muscle tissue that has been lost. If you are someone that can stick to a plan and not your mood, okay, if you've just been doing a bulk where you've just been winging it and just eating like whatever and not really sticking to a diet or a training plan or steps too much, you're going to really struggle doing this because you need to have just transitioned from a bulk where you're still on plan to an aggressive cut where you're still on plan. You're just eating less food. There shouldn't really be too much difference in those. So if you can stick to a plan, you are going to be perfect for this aggressive cut. And also someone that has got previous data of a cut. So this was me at around 90 something kilo, and this is me around 78, 79 kilo. And that's my favorite look. So I know, for example, now whilst I'm doing my cut, I'm say 85 at the moment. I started at 88. I know that once I get down to around that 80 kilo mark, that's where my condition is going to be pretty good. And I've got that number to actually aim for. So who have we got in the not so ideal criteria? Now, anyone that is over 25% body fat, even maybe 20% body fat, and obviously the further you move up this percentage, the even worse you're going to be for this criteria. Now, the reason is if you have spent multiple years being overweight, you've been obese for 10 years, it's not coming off in 8 weeks. Okay. It is going to take, obviously it depends on what stage you're at. This is going to take over a year to get rid of. This is going to take about a year. And obviously, as you go down, it's going to take less time. But you need to be in a sustained deficit for a long period of time. So that doesn't look like a big deficit, massive cardio, massive steps. That looks like a little deficit, a little bit of cardio, and a little bit of added steps, but for a year. That is the best option for you here. You have too much body fat to lose, and you're going to run into all them negatives I said about in that previous slide very quickly at this body fat percentage. If you are someone that has had a problem with binge eating or really just going off plan or going mental at the weekends, you cannot do this approach because there is going to be points where you are incredibly hungry. It's just going to happen in an aggressive cut. It's such a short time period. You're going to get hungry real quick. If you have a tendency to binge, this is the worst approach for you because your hunger is going to be too high. You're then going to try and mitigate the damage by doing these 0-calorie days and loads of cardio, and it's just a terrible spiral to go into. So if you're someone that deals with that, do not go for this approach and just go for a more relaxed approach. And also, if you are like me on the left here, so this is when I started the gym. I was about 70 kilo and I was pretty skinny. As you can say, well, I was skinny, not a lot of muscle mass, but also I wasn't at a particularly low body fat percentage, really. If I went to an aggressive cut here, the look would probably get a bit worse. I was obviously here just focusing on putting on size, which I did when I got up to here, around 90 kilo. And this would be the ideal physique to go for an aggressive cut. Hopefully you guys have learned a bit about aggressive cutting here. I would love to help you guys with what you're doing with trying to get in shape for summer. Just wanted to show you what I've done last year with a client. So this was in about 8 weeks and we shaved off 9 kilos, and look at the difference in that. Absolutely ridiculous. The physique just came to life so much quicker. I am an online coach and a personal trainer. So if you guys need help getting in shape, I'm more than happy to help you out. Even if you just want to drop me a message on Instagram, which is at @BenRidgers_RTB. I can even just help you make the decision of do you need to do an aggressive cut or a normal cut. And if you check under this YouTube video, the top link in the description will be an application form to join my online coaching team. And if you want to know a little bit more about how that service works, if you go onto my page, I have a full video just like this explaining how my whole service works. And I'd love to get to working with you. So cheers for watching, guys. Drop a like, subscribe, all that jazz.